See if we can move this around just a tad. Well, hey, good evening, gardening friends. Hope things are going well tonight. We are now in the month of June, and so for any of you that are gardeners out there, things are probably starting to really take off, which is a good thing. At least if you did any kind of planting in May, which we got out there about the second week of May, I believe. First week, maybe we were putzing around a little bit, but second week we definitely had some stuff going and then battled the elements or whatnot, but everything's doing really well. I'll have to make a follow-up video maybe tomorrow of the garden. We went out to Dad's tonight to take a look at everything, and it's just attacked literally from the moment we got out of the car and started walking in the lawn, just swarmed with mosquitoes. They're just really bad out there at dusk, and part of the reason is that we've got he kind of lives on the higher part, but there's a lower part where the land is kind of prone to flooding and stuff like that. That's the next door neighbor. And hey Tom, what's up, dude? So anyway, it's just a breeding ground of mosquitoes because they don't do anything to try to drain that. They just let it do its thing. Yeah, mosquitoes are getting me good. So my daughter, she was with me. She immediately just ran back to the car. She didn't want to deal with it. And I really don't want to spray it off on myself like repellent every single time we go out there. You know, for one, it's stuff's loaded with chemicals. It's probably not real good for you. It's going to get absorbed in your skin, and ultimately you're going to absorb some of that. Yeah, so what's the solution, right? So I was doing some research, and I guess there's a concoction, they call it Paul Harvey spray. And apparently maybe in the 80s or something, a Paul Harvey radio show had someone featured on there where or maybe he promoted this method. Nicotine, huh? Well, my sister's got cigarettes. She smokes, so maybe I can get some cigarettes from her. Actually, she's got all kinds of used cigarettes. It's kind of nasty. She's got pop bottles where she's putting the butts in the containers or whatever. But this Paul Harvey spray seems interesting. Basically, yeah. Basically with this, it's Epsom salt, mouthwash, and flat beer. I guess you can put it in carbonated, but then it causes the mixture to foam up and all that. So they recommend taking like, I think it was 6 cans of just cheap beer or something, opening them up, letting them go flat, putting them in your container with, I think it was like 4 cups of Epsom salt. It was like 4 cups of Epsom salt, I think, 6 cans of beer, and a cup of Listerine or minty mouthwash, which I guess is like a stabilizer, or just, you know, also gives like a kind of a mint smell. But it's the salt, apparently, that kills the mosquitoes. They're attracted to the beer. Nicotine. I might have to try that. I'm curious now. But apparently the beer is what attracts the mosquitoes, and then they ingest the salt, and the salt kills them. And so the idea is you make up a batch of this stuff, and then you spray, the perimeter of your yard, or wherever you don't want mosquitoes, which we would have to spray quite a bit. I mean, basically all the grassy areas, the garden would definitely have to go through the garden and spray all of that. I mean, all that leaf mulch that's in there is just a breeding ground. I mean, like, mosquitoes can find places there. So I'm contemplating that because though we don't really drink, I maybe have something once a year or whatever. My father-in-law, on my wife's side, basically on my wife's side of the family, they drink, beer, wine, stuff like that. And so a lot of times he'll come over. If they come over, yeah, that's my game plan. Is I'm gonna try to get out to Dad's tomorrow morning to take a look at everything. I wanted to take a look at stuff tonight, and I stuck around long enough to kill a couple of potato beetles and squash some eggs and stuff like that. But we didn't stay very long at all because, I mean, literally it was just, they were buzzing in my ears, coming into my eyes, trying to get in my mouth. It's just bad. In fact, I think and maybe it's just because it's earlier in the season, it seems like, but they're bad this year. Could be because of the winter. It's probably because of that big pool of water that's just kind of slowly evaporating. It's just an ideal breeding ground for them. But I'm thinking about giving it a try because there's a bunch of, I'm sure it's probably flat beer in the fridge down here that my father-in-law brought over. Like, where, if we have family get-togethers and stuff like that, he would bring his own beer and leave it in the fridge here, so that way whenever he would come over, he wouldn't have to bring beer every time because he likes to drink beer or wine or whatever. So I'm sure there's probably some here where I can experiment with this method using the Epsom salt and the mouthwash, which I'll probably go to, like, maybe Dollar Tree or one of the dollar stores to get that, because it's probably pretty cheap there. But try to make this concoction up and just see if it works. And then if it doesn't, well, hey Mary, how you doing? I'm trying to think if you've ever been on the channel before as far as live stream. Maybe once. Maybe it was in a comment. I've seen you comment before, I think. But if we're talking about mosquitoes, Mary, I'm talking with Tom, my buddy here, lives in the same town as me, once in a while. Well, I'm glad you have popped in and hanging out with us a little bit. Talking about how to deal with mosquitoes in the garden. Because I just literally, my daughter and I were accosted by them tonight. They just swarmed us big time. So I was telling Tom about the Paul Harvey spray, is what they call it. And it's basically Epsom salt, beer, flat beer, and mouthwash. And it's supposed to spray yeah. So I'm thinking about trying that tomorrow, because ideally, I mean, the evening time is it's a pleasant time to be out in the garden and stuff. Heat of the day's past. Everything's starting to recover from being in the sun, and it's just nice being out there. Usually like a little bit of a breeze and stuff. So I want to I just got a message from Frank. I don't know if he's on the live stream. You're supposed to spray it on the garden, not your skin, because the flat beer actually attracts mosquitoes. So you don't want to attract the mosquitoes to your skin. Um, you want to spray it in the yard, and the idea is that the beer attracts the mosquitoes, and then when they ingest it, the salt kills them. Salt is what kills the mosquitoes when they ingest it. And so even though that might dry out, I guess this mixture is supposed to be good for a little while, because every time, yeah, even though it might evaporate during the day, during the evening or early morning when the dew is on the ground, it reactivates the salt, and the mosquitoes are hanging down low, and they'll supposedly, you know, be taking drinks again. And the Epsom salt, like, you don't use regular like table salt or other salt, but you use Epsom salt because it actually a natural fertilizer, and will it's supposedly, well, it is. It's good for plants because it's part of the Mint Ladder weekly feed that I use, that Tom and I use, and I think the Amish use it. Epsom salt's a really good mineral source for plants. So it won't kill your grass. Yeah, so the alternative, and maybe you guys know some other ideas to take care of mosquitoes in the yard, but alternatives would be to, instead of using like repellent, like we wanted to kill them and stuff, would be like set up CO2 traps to try to catch them and kill them that way. They sell like the bug lights, the electric stuff where you can electrocute them. I guess there's a variety of things out there that you can do. You can treat your yard with like cutter spray, or I think a bug zapper personally would be kind of cool, just to just see stuff going. I think that'd be kind of cool, but anyway, I got to do something because I want to reclaim the evenings, because that's a lot of times is when I can get down to the garden. I'm working all day, usually factoring in drive time and stuff, going at least 55 hours a week, 55 to 60. A lot of times not able to get out there till like, 7:30, depending on when dinner's going and whatnot. Sometimes as late as 8, and maybe get an hour and a half of light to mess around. But it's prime time for mosquitoes too, coming out. So I want to definitely be able to deal with them rather than just repel them where they're still there, and then I have to worry about spraying down or whatever every time I go out there. I just assume just get rid of them, or greatly reduce their populations, where maybe I'm only getting like 10 bites instead of like 50 to 100 depending on how long we stay out there. So definitely open to any ideas if you guys have any experience dealing with mosquitoes in the garden. Yeah, maybe the other solution. So I ordered it's like an herbal. I've kind of been interested in learning more about herbs and like natural medicine a little bit, and part of that reason is one thing I used to get on occasion would be strep throat, in the wintertime or whatever, which is just terrible at not, or just bad sore throat in general. And I remember one time getting in and coming across that if you take like I think it's a tablespoon of honey, a quarter to a half teaspoon of cayenne pepper, like powdered cayenne pepper, and smash a clove of garlic, and then kind of mince it up, and you mix all that together, and then you basically gulp it down so that it runs down the back of your throat, like coats the area that's inflamed or whatever. And then you don't drink anything for like 20 minutes. You just kind of let that stuff sit, try not to swallow a whole lot, so that the honey and that mix of cayenne and what bit of garlic is there, what it'll do is it'll kill the bacteria and stuff, because it's like natural antiseptic, like, or antimicrobial. Honey's antimicrobial. Garlic, same way. So it will kill bacteria, and then the cayenne will increase blood flow to the area to help speed healing and stuff. So I did that, and literally, like, within 15-20 minutes, like, sore throat was gone. Like, all of that was just gone. Felt a lot better. So anyway, kind of thinking about the mosquitoes, and I was like, man, there's probably some kind of well, you have to let me know how that works. If that works well, maybe I get me a bug zapper. We can run electricity down to the garden. But fascinated with, learning a little bit more about herbs and what we can do with them and stuff, as far, and maybe even, the idea of, like, you ingest your bug repellent, where maybe you maybe by what you eat you can change your odor or whatever, so that mosquitoes don't find you as appealing. Yeah, it's going to work out perfect with your electric fence there. So I ordered that. That was on Amazon. It was like next day delivery, like $18 for this book. Looked like it got some pretty good ratings and whatnot. So we're going to check that out and see if there's any kind of anything I can glean, like, learn from that. I think would be kind of cool. Maybe try to incorporate more herbs in the garden, more flowers. Like, my sister's basically the one doing the herbs and the flowers in the other side of the garden, and just not really gotten into that a whole lot. At the old garden, we did do some flowers, and we did a few little, like, potted herbs and stuff, but I think it'd be kind of neat, I think, this go around, to learn a little bit more about that stuff and then try to incorporate it, going forward. So I don't know, other than that, the garden itself is doing really well. Things are, like I say, just things are really popping right now. Like, really, the plants are kind of getting established, and they're just going gangbusters now. Oh shoot. Speaking of the tomatoes, they're doing really well too. Like, a ton of new growth on the majority of plants. I've got one plant that's got a few branches that are kind of wilted, and I'm trying to figure out what the deal is with that. I don't know if it's like Fusarium wilt, or it's got something going on with it. The rest of the plant looks fine, but there's a couple of places on it that don't look so good. And then I've got here at the house, some potted tomatoes, and I think both plants now have self-pollinated or whatever, and I've got little cherry tomatoes going now, which is really cool, because I just planted those like last weekend, maybe a week and a half ago, and they're already just starting to take off, and which is really cool. Got most of my leftover plants given away, found homes for them. Yeah, it's just crazy how fast everything's growing. My cucumbers and stuff, I started them last weekend. They're starting to gain some size, and so I was looking at building some teepees for them. I think I shared the site with you. I know I shared it with Frank. It's animatedknots.com. It's a really cool site. You can learn. It's just really cool. So learned how to tie some new knots, and so I was thinking about just getting some wooden stakes and tying some teepees up for my cucumbers, and setting some stuff up there. I need to see. I may have some extra cattle paneling left. Yeah, no. That might be a project. Maybe a project this fall when the garden where things are kind of shutting down and I got areas where maybe I'm not growing anything is try to get some T-frames built going into the spring, so that way it's already ready to go. We'll kind of see if I get the government passes another stimulus, maybe I'll do that. I don't know. But it's things are really going well. That's awesome. We're actually tomorrow. I guess there's a couple places where they're strawberry picking. They're going to allow people to pick strawberries. So we're thinking about going to pick strawberries tomorrow. There's also a new place in town called the Iron Waffle or something that's opening up. And they serve breakfast and stuff. So we may go get some breakfast tomorrow before we get going and everything. It sounded like a really cool place. Try to get some stuff done. Out there, probably mow my dad's grass at some point once my sister wakes up. That's cool. I've got a buddy back in Indiana whose stepdad ran a berry farm. It was called Ted's Berry Farm, and he had all kinds of stuff: strawberries, blackberries, raspberries. I don't think he had blueberries. But real nice place. Lots of nice stuff there. There's another place called Wingers in is it West Liberty or trying to think where that place is at. We went there last year and I think it was around July, and the blueberries were awesome. We live in Southwest Ohio. And it's taken a little bit to get used to the weather seasons here. It seems like it's, I don't know. It's cloudy a lot. Though we've had some sunny days here lately. There's a lot of like overcast days, being kind of in the Ohio River Valley. So where are you at, Mary? Yeah, no, it seemed like we got more sunshine though where I was at. I was in Northwest Indiana before we moved over here. South Florida, that's right. That's right. You mentioned that earlier with the mosquitoes when we were talking about that. So how are things down in Florida with the like COVID-19 and all that stuff? I mean, I know Florida caught a lot of flack because they didn't shut down the beaches initially, and pickle worms. What's pickle worms? I'm curious about that. Is it like caterpillars that attack cucumbers or something? They grow in cucumber and melon? That's crazy. That reminds me. So the diatomaceous earth, I need to put another application on that. And I saw this. Huh. Saw a picture of this tool. I think it's battery powered or whatever, but it's basically a oh, that's cool. Yeah, it's getting a little wild around here too. Like when they start opening things back up, like most I've noticed here that a lot of the stores going to, like nobody's wearing any kind of like facial coverings. I think people are getting a little more cavalier about it. Maybe because they don't know anyone personally that's come down with it, or they just, the stuff in the media and whatnot. It's been kind of interesting, you know, how people are responding. Um, yeah, and that's probably another aspect of it too. With the temperatures getting hot, it is difficult to wear a mask. Be able to breathe um, clearly and stuff. And I think people are just thinking, I'll take my chances and would rather breathe like that than wear a face covering or whatnot. It's kind of been interesting too how like polarizing that's been. Um, how I guess opinionated people are about all of that, and how especially on like social media and all that, and just some of the things that are being posted and whatnot. It's like not really, I don't know, just a lot of vitriol, I guess is what you could. Shoot. Well, you warned them about the transmission problems. That they bought a fleet of lemons, and that they were going to be going down next, probably sooner rather than later. That's funny. Shoot. Well, Mary, do you have a garden down in Florida? Yeah, where we've got a relative that is the health commissioner for a county in Ohio, and he's kind of shares the same sentiment that it's not, this stuff isn't a joke, and yet people are kind of, again, kind of being cavalier about it. And even though like a facial covering isn't, it takes away N95 type mask to effectively keep the particles from coming through or whatever because they're so small. Um, they still make a difference, I think, as far as how far you can. Well, that's another thing. Maybe we're gonna see. It'll be interesting to see if things tick back up in 14 days or whatever, with all the crowds, all the people getting together like that, and protesting. Which there's some weird stuff going on there too. Oh, you tell you gardening it's a little bit physical, for sure. And like, I know one thing that helped me this year just was having my dad got this auger, and I've talked about it in a few videos, but that thing was a total back saver this year. We got this, it's a Landworks earth auger, had like a 6-inch bit that's like 2.5 feet long. I mean, the thing is designed where basically you're standing upright and comfortably, and it only weighs about 12 pounds, but that thing's a beast. You know, I don't know how many, probably 50, 60 holes, 10 inches deep a piece. Easily dug that on a one battery charge. And my dad got a second battery for it, so you could charge one. I think it's pretty fast charging, like within 30 minutes or so. The battery's pretty much to full power again. So we were to keep that going, but having that tool was awesome. Just not having to dig all those holes by hand, and just made planting a lot easier this year. The other cool thing about that is, like, if you want to do like no-till, where like you're kind of doing precision planting, so to speak, and you are tilling that spot or drilling that spot where you're going to plant, but you're not disturbing or destroying the rest of the soil structure around it. So as the plant grows, it's going to send roots out into that structure where all those microorganisms are and all of that. So, and I think there's I've seen it on Instagram and stuff, other no-till farmers that are using like similar implement. Shoot. But having the right tools just makes things so much easier. Hey Frank, what's up, man? I saw your text. I wasn't able to respond though because we got this live stream going. Oh shoot, Tom. Too funny. Have you tried the salsa yet, Frank? Psalm 148. Now, I don't know that one by heart. I'll have to look that up later. What's it say? Yeah, I don't know about Roundup. Isn't there like a class action? I think you're being facetious with us, Tom. I don't think glyphosate's good for humans. I'm trying to think what the documentary was that was talking about all that, but the idea, like, and they're still doing studies and stuff on that. But I know that one class action lawsuit with that, he was like a groundskeeper at a school or something where they were using Roundup all the time, and he didn't have like PPE, like protective equipment or whatever, and Interesting. I'll have to study that out, Frank. Yeah, I mean that stuff is it's kind of crazy, but I guess that glyphosate, what it does in plants is it prevents them from like what taking up water, like disrupts their their system, basically starves them out. And so I guess the implication is that, they say, oh yeah, Roundup Ready crops, it's not, does us no harm, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, but what they're finding is not only does it give us cancer and stuff, but all these like immune um, disorders and like these weird diseases like you didn't hear of, they're just kind of like they don't have any cures for and all that is has to do with like perforations in the bowel. When you're ingesting this food and stuff that's laced with all this, like over time, like you can develop intestinal problems and things like that, and then basically you're leaching things into bloodstream, and then your immune system, it's got these, it's detecting, it doesn't know what to do with that stuff, and so your body starts attacking itself, and you have all this inflammation, you have all these chronic disorders and disorders involving like the immune system and the endocrine system that are just like super challenging to address. It's crazy. Yeah, and that probably has a lot to do with it too. I mean, corn is in everything, right? Even in like um, the sugar and stuff, and sugar beets, and I don't know. So, what do you do? I guess you eat processed foods in moderation, right? I mean, I had a few, or I confess, I had like 3 Oreo cookies yesterday, and I had probably a bag of M&Ms today. Yeah, it's nuts. But I am enjoying kale. Currently, the kale is really taken off, and I've got enough plants that I just take one sprig basically from the plants down the road. I've got a nice handful, and so I had some kale for breakfast this morning. It's still like relatively sweet. Yeah, I don't know what that's about. Like they're holding off, or what the deal is there, but it does seem like the fields are not as many fields are planted, at least not yet. Now the ones by my dad's house, they have been in them and they are planting them on the way there. I think they alternate like the corn and the beans and stuff. I think this year they may be doing corn. So I may hold off, Frank, on planting that ornamental corn you gave me. And wait till they do beans, out there before I do corn, where I'm at. And I still need to plant the melons. Like I got the seeds you gave me, Frank. I got them sprouted and like they're going real good. I got to separate them this weekend and then drill some more holes and plant them out in the garden, get them going. And then we're going to do pumpkins probably next month. Oh, interesting. So maybe they're going to like switch to another crop or like Just not, like you said, not plant. Hmm. uh, yeah, chocolate corn cookies. Chocolate corn M&Ms. One thing that's been going good, I need to maybe make an update on is those Bountiful Harvest grow boxes. We've harvested a couple rounds of lettuce. My favorite are the double stuff. I like the cream in the middle. But my grow boxes are doing really well. We've gotten several pickings of lettuce off of them. I've got radishes going now, and another box of lettuce started. And then I may try carrots after that and just see how they do in those boxes. Cream betweens. Yeah, I'm excited about the melons too. I hope they're the smaller ones, but if it's Charleston Gray or whatever, I mean, that's fine. We'll see how it turns out. With the cookies, my brother-in-law, he's the manager there at Save a Lot, so I'll have to ask him about those. Future brother-in-law. So what does everyone have going on this weekend? I know for us we got a couple different things we may or may not do. Oh boy. Well, that's cool. Yeah, I do need to get the van AC fixed, or I just need to get a new van. We've talked about maybe getting a minivan. We talked about the Suburban a little bit, but my wife's a little. At first, that's what she was all in on that, but she's had second thoughts here lately because, like my oldest daughter, she's 18, and she'll be with us a little longer. You know, I mean, we by no means are kicking her out or anything. But the kids are they're kind of coming into their own, doing their own activities. Like this weekend, they're going tubing. Two or three of them are. So, you know, that's half the kids right there, kind of doing their own thing. And it's been a little bit of a difficult transition, especially for my wife, because she's invested so much time with them and their education and stuff, spending time with them and managing their schedules and all that. And now she's having to relinquish some of that, as they're kind of coming into their own. Yeah, we're thinking something smaller. She's thinking minivan, but I don't know. We've had minivans before. They tend to be Dodge Caravans. Like we had one that was an old beater. It had like the wood paneling and was given to us, but pretty much a beater, where you could, when you went to close the door or you opened the door, it fell off the rail. Oh, that sucks, Frank. Oh, shit. Yeah, I know. Some parents are that depend on their philosophy on things. Once a child turns 18 or whatever, like they're on their own, or they expect them to take off or whatnot, and we're kind of just they're responsible. I think the main thing is as long as they're communicating with us and they're holding down a job, like where she's working, she's making almost $15 an hour. Oh man. It's hard enough losing a parent when you're an adult, let alone like, right when you're a young adult, turning 18 and losing a parent. When I was in my 30s when I lost my mom, but I was already like established, like I had my own family and like, still tough, but I can only imagine, having to go through something like that. Or, being kicked out, like you were saying, Frank, at 18 and like expected to just figure it out, and make it happen. And we could do that, with them, but like I guess where we're figuring is they need as much support as they can get, just like stability still, till they really get, figure out their direction, like what they want to do, and kind of get a game plan together. They don't have to have all of it like super mapped out, but um, like a rational path forward, some sense of direction. So right now, my oldest daughter, she's 18. Yeah, yeah. Um, she's working at the assisted living place, but I guess Mercy Health has like a ton of opportunities, and once you're in kind of the network, it's fairly easy to get cross trained into other departments and learn, other things, and then potentially, they have tuition reimbursement and things like that. So if she found something she enjoyed doing, associated with the hospital or the Mercy Health Network, she could potentially get some of that schooling paid for, or certifications, whatnot, while getting them done on the job. So getting paid to work, one, but also getting paid to earn the certifications and things like that. So anyway, I guess what her employer told her is really anything she wants to learn, they're gonna, they're willing to cross train her. Hey there, funking knew it. It's been a while since I've seen you on the channel. I'm trying to think, it might have been like last year. Maybe not. Yeah, are you the one that you prune the bonsai trees? You doing bonsai trees, and I'm trying to think where you live. Like over in Europe somewhere? Or no, South Africa, that's right. But you're the bonsai guy. I got it right. Okay. Well, that's cool. So are you still doing that? Oh, IT. Well, you're at home here. Both Frank and Tom know about IT. I don't know about Mary. Mary's in the medical field. That's cool. There's a ton of like websites and stuff to learn how to code. That's awesome, man. We got, it was 2 years ago, my daughter, as a Christmas present, we got one of those, trying to think, it was like a computer that it was based on Raspberry Pi or something, where you could learn coding and all that, but um, it was cheaply made. It was like I don't know, there's components on it that kept failing, and so I'd have to go back to the seller. Trying to think the name of that company. And they sent me parts like free, like they kept sending me parts, but stuff just kept breaking on it. So finally, I sent it all back and got a full refund on the computer. I think it was like $200. But they're doing a lot of cool stuff with like, I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with like a Raspberry Pi. I've got a buddy at work. He uh, I'm doing pretty good. I think Frank and Tom are doing pretty good. I don't know about Mary. She recently had surgery, so maybe she's recovering, but maybe doing okay. So one of the things too, like thinking about the bonsai um, trees, we got my daughter the bonsai tree seeds or whatever, and I guess they can take up to a year to sprout. It's crazy. She had a little book where she was reading on it and trying to get them to grow, and then I guess it can take, I don't know, like, a lifetime to print, like 25, 30 years to get them, decent size. They're bonsai tree seeds. I don't know the exact variety. But the idea with the bonsai tree is you're basically like um, constricting like the root ball, right? So that it's not going to grow like a regular tree. It's going to be stunted, right? Because of how the roots are. Oh, shoot. Yeah, I don't think she's gotten one to successfully sprout yet, but we've got a package of seeds in the refrigerator because I guess, where she had read, talked about refrigerating them. Yeah. I've heard that, like, was it basil and peppers? I think they're pine. They're pine seeds. Well, hey, Mary, I appreciate you dropping by and sticking around with us. You have to drop in again sometime. Bonsai tobacco plant. Is a tobacco a nightshade? Is that in a nightshade family, like with tomatoes and peppers and all of that? I'm thinking it is. Have a good night, Mary. Okay, I gotcha. Yeah, that was the other thing about the bonsai stuff is digging them up and repotting them, like disrupting their growth. The whole idea is you're keeping them stunted, and which is probably why like tomato leaves are poisonous. Like, you don't want to ingest them. Maybe that's why. Like, I remember like um, your stories were. Anyway, I hope she gets one started at some point. I think it'd be kind of cool to see how that develops and grows. Bonsai Mirai. Is that a YouTube channel? Okay, I'll have to check that out. Or I'll have to tell her about that too. Maybe she would take some interest again in it. Right now they're looking at starting like an Etsy shop or something. She's got some art, and she's thinking about designing like basically cardstock or print things that you can use that she could then make prints from and then sell. Which I think would be pretty cool. I was supposed to help her set it up last week and we ran out of time, so maybe this weekend that would be something we do too. So down in South Africa, are you guys, you don't hear much about COVID-19 down there, at least I haven't. Have you guys had any of that? Like had any kind of outbreak down there? Level 3? Okay. But they haven't like forced you guys to go into quarantine or wear face coverings or, you know, closed anything down, is that right? Is everything still open? Okay. Yeah, we got some TP. We didn't like hoard it or anything like we're buying like ridiculous amounts, but pick up a pack about every other week just to kind of stay ahead of the demand for it. And worst case scenario, you know, if there you couldn't get it, you could always go to Family Cloth. I was joking around about that a month or two ago. Yeah. There's videos on how to make it. You can make strips that you can actually roll up in a toilet paper roll, except it's just cloth. And you pull off the cloth and then you put it in a pail of disinfectant and then do laundry, right? Similar to like cloth diapers. We went through a phase on those when we were having the kids, you know, at one point. My wife wanted to try the cloth diapers, and so we went ahead and did that, and it was just like, and they worked okay, but they're just a pain. And so just we oh shoot, yeah, break out the Family Cloth. I got plenty of old t-shirts. Yeah. Oh, that's too funny. Yeah, you can save some money for sure. Oh, shoot. Well, have you guys read anything interesting lately? All this time in quarantine? Yeah, it's been busy here too. Oh, shit. The art of coding. Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be more. I know at one point, I think our company had contemplated joining a class action lawsuit against you know, whatever her title is, director of health or whatever, um, for the shutdown and like the economic impact that it had, but we opted not to do that. Did any of you guys see the SpaceX shuttle launch this last week? I think it was like um, last Wednesday. That's insane. You watch the highlights? Yeah, it was amazing. We planned the day to get back. We finished mowing like it was like 10 till 3. I finished weed eating out at Dad's. Like, man, we need to get home so we can watch that. I guess it was like at 3:20 or 3:22, the launch. It was just cool that, well, one, that it was successful, that they were able to, nothing like blew up. Um, and they were able to take off and then get into orbit and stuff like that. And then they showed the video, of them, the International Space Station, and I guess all the protocol for them to actually get in there, and I guess when they could eat and all this stuff. What's insane is the amount of fuel, like energy it takes to get something that small, into space, right? And I guess, what their whole proposition of that partnership is to be able to reuse the rockets and stuff. And I guess the even cooler thing was the fact that they got the rocket, the part that detached, got it to land. Yeah, it was pretty cool that they got it to actually land on the to return, without um, blowing up or getting damaged and stuff. So they can reuse it. Yeah, the shuttle is pretty cool. I'm trying to think. I think the minimum that they have to stay is it 30 days? I think it's 30 days. They've got to stay at the Yeah, it's. I'm sure they'll figure out like a cheaper way. You know, there'll be some technology that comes out. The other thing that's amazing about all that too is just, yeah. The other thing that's cool was, or just amazing about, was how they had to like plan the timing just right because it wasn't just the weather there at Cape Canaveral or I think that's where it was launched from, but it was also along its trajectory as it's leaving Earth's orbit. You know, in different places like in Europe and stuff like that, where the weather had to be cooperative as well. You know, so you wouldn't have like a lightning event or something that could potentially cause a fire or some bad stuff. But we made all the kids watch it as well. We had everybody at the house, to watch because it is kind of like a. Oh shoot. Yeah, Tesla's coming out with some pretty neat stuff. I mean, not only they got that SpaceX, Elon Musk got that going, but I saw something in the news now where they're working on the e-bike. So they got the electric semi that they're going to be rolling out for production. That's supposed to get insane mileage and have higher torque and all of that. They've got the cars, that they've had that technology for a while, and now they're doing the e-bike. And I thought I heard something like maybe they're gonna work with Harley Davidson. Yeah, I just want to see that. I think of the movie Tron, right? But it's just some cool stuff that's coming out. It might be Nikola. I was thinking they're affiliated with Tesla. I've still got this. My poison ivy's on the tail end. Just got a few spots. I've been using that Fells Naphtha soap. When I take a shower and stuff like that. And it seemed like it worked. It did help dry this stuff out pretty good. Nikola. Oh, shoot. There's gonna be some cool stuff coming out. I think also like drones, like that technology is really coming along too. I mean, they're already using it in like a lot of different applications, like agriculture, surveillance. Yeah, count your blessings, Frank, because it's not. I mean, I don't get it as bad as I used to. Used to, it was just really bad. Like I would have to. One time, I had to get a steroid shot in the rump because it got kind of in my bloodstream and it wasn't good. Um, but now it seems like, and it's probably because I get it. I've gotten it almost every year. Yeah, my kids, I've got one or two that are allergic, but I've got one that's not, doesn't really bother her. Yeah, I remember reading an article about you mentioned the farm bots down there that go through the rows of corn. That's how I got it. We were since 7. We were pulling poison ivy from underneath the deck. I had gloves on, but they only went so far, so I didn't get it on. And I tried to be real careful and wash my hands with soap, but I guess I missed part of my wrist or whatever, and ended up getting it. And I've got a little patch on the back of one of my legs where I must, when I was underneath the deck, walk through some of that. But it's all gone now. We were able to get it, I think, all pulled out. So I've also seen, I guess, speaking about technology and like farming or gardening or whatever, and you guys are probably seeing it too, but they had this. Yeah, they had something like that, Frank, except it was on I want to say like a CNC type deal. So it was like square foot gardening type bed was the idea, and they had this kind of It's basically a robot that could move anywhere on that grid and could detect weeds and would, you know, go down and pull the weed out, could apply fertilizer, and basically take care of a garden, a raised bed garden type deal. Was kind of cool. I know with the drones, like in commercial ag, they've got technology where they can tell where maybe there's disease pressure by like doing I don't know if it's ultraviolet scanning of the plants or basically some light spectrum they're using or whatever when they're scanning the fields. They can tell where there might be pest pressure, so they can like do like precision, as they call that, what, precision agriculture, where they can apply fertilizer, pesticide, whatever at precise locations, and basically have that all mapped. And they're using drones to help do that. It's just pretty amazing, some of the technology now that's out there. Speaking about keeping pests out, probably the funniest thing I've seen is the scarecrow sprinkler system. If you or sprinkler head or whatever, and the idea is that, and I guess they made it primarily the problem was cats coming in and using the garden as like a litter box, right? Or like critters that would be approaching, maybe deer at night or whatever. But the idea is the head of this thing has a field of view, like motion detector, and if something comes in the field of view, it will fire off like random shots of like water, like high pressure streams of water, just make this commotion, fire out shots in a couple different directions, and scare the pests away, right? Or scare the cat away, scare the deer away, whatever. And there's videos, showing it working and stuff. But it's called I think it's called the Scarecrow, which I thought was one of the more funnier, pest deterrents out there. And I guess another cool technology that, and I don't know, like, how much of it is, like, if it really works or not. It would sound kind of a little corny, but can't remember the name of it. But the idea is that it's basically a speaker that is sending out frequency like a bird chirp. And the idea is that there are crops, flowering crops, things like that. Oh, cool. But the idea of this technology is that it's supposed to increase production of like fruit trees, anything like flowering plant that has the the male and female parts, because the idea is that I guess the bird chirping and all of that, I guess one of the purposes of that is that a lot of these plants, they've got these hard calcium, like basically calcium in their reproductive parts, and the frequency of the bird song or whatever causes the things to vibrate, or to vibrate together or whatever, and basically increases pollination or whatnot. At least I think, if I'm understanding it correctly. So the idea is that you set up this speaker that's broadcasting the same frequency as like the bird song in the orchard or in your garden area or whatever, and it's supposed to increase pollination because of that, reacting with the plants and things like that. I thought it was kind of cool. Maybe there's something to it. There is a lot of neat little technology and stuff out there. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I'll probably think of the name tomorrow. We'll be out and about and it'll come to me. If I do, I'll have to share it in another video. Yeah, that's basically the idea. There's a response mechanism that reacts to the bird's song that then causes it to be pollinated or whatever. Which I think that's really cool, like the fact that there's like a purpose, like how nature is all like designed, created to work together like that. Like there's a purpose. The birds aren't just singing to be singing and stuff, but they actually, there's a benefit to the environment around them. There's a reason why that they're there. Which is pretty cool. Yeah, I tell you, we got. Oh man, Frank. Well, hey, I appreciate you sticking around. I have to catch up with you. There's been some cool stuff here lately. I haven't shared on this live stream, but just some cool stuff. Things of the Lord type stuff. Yeah, that's amazing. Well, what time is it? I think I started about, was it 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time? Yeah, maybe I'll share just a little bit. Why not? As we're closing down, because I'll probably take off here in a little bit. But I had my buddy over. Stone was over the other night, and was he got some plants from me, and then he ended up hanging out with me for a while. And we were just talking about gardening. We were talking about all kinds of stuff, and then we started talking about the Lord, which I know where Tom is with that. I don't know about you here. I think we've talked about things like that before. Maybe the last time you were on the channel a little bit, but anyway, we're just chatting about life, talking about things. It's kind of cool. But I was just sharing with him, like, usually when I'm reading like scriptures and stuff like that, pretty easily, to understand it, and things jump out and kind of hit me or whatever. Well, for the last, I don't know, couple weeks, I've been kind of stuck, not really understanding why exactly, like, why isn't this kind of coming together, or understanding this, why isn't this kind of opening up? And at the same time, so that was just kind of mulling over. So I was reading the book of Ephesians, basically, and just kind of going through it and trying to understand it, wrap my mind around it. And well, then, talking with the kids, a lot of times we'll do a little study where I'm teaching them things and whatnot. And we were going through the book of Deuteronomy, which is basically an Old Testament book that attributed to Moses, that he wrote to the Israelites. It was kind of like his farewell address, as he's not going to be going into the Promised Land, Canaan, and all that. So he's kind of recounting their wilderness wanderings and then kind of giving them the law and elaborating on it and all of that. And so I think it's like Deuteronomy 15 is the law of debts and the law of slaves. And I guess one of the things that the Lord wanted to set up in society there, Jewish society, was the idea, like, he didn't want generational poverty. Like, that wasn't his plan. So there's a way of basically people being able to come out of that. Every 7 years, debts were supposed to be forgiven, and slaves were supposed to be given the opportunity to go free. And if they wanted to go free, whoever they were serving was supposed to give them provision so that they could kind of start over. So it's kind of cool, just this idea, like, there's, the Lord's always kind of working to, free us and, like, provide us opportunities, to restore us to himself and get us out of, I guess, spiritual poverty, if you wanted to kind of, like, look at it that way. But always looking for ways to give us a new start and things like that. So anyway, that was cool. I was just kind of thinking about that. But there's a section in there about the servants where there could be a situation where, okay, it's 7 years is up, servant can go free, but he doesn't want to go free. Decides, I love my master. I want to stay here. I'm prospering. I love being a part of this family. I want to serve willingly and remain here. And so if that was the case, basically he would tell his master that, and so the master said, well, okay, this is going to be kind of a lifetime agreement then. You can stay. Let's go to the doorpost. So they would go to a doorpost, and he would take an awl and, like, pierce the ear of the servant and put, like, a gold ring or something in there, so that the servant was marked as, pierced ear servant, or a bond servant, right? Would be like the translation of that to, like, New Testament stuff. So that's where, so I kind of got that nugget, like, that's okay. So that was kind of mulling around. And then I was reading in the book of Titus, which is basically a letter Paul wrote to Titus, who was a young pastor or whatever, giving him kind of advice on how to, like, run the church and, like, select leaders and, like, deal with people and all this stuff. But at the beginning of the first 3 verses, he talks about, Paul is kind of talking himself about himself as a bondservant to Christ. And so anyway, that just kind of hit me. I was like, okay. So I studied that out a little bit more. And I guess the word for bondservant in the Greek is doulos, and it basically meant the lowest form of servitude. That's what it meant for like a normal slave or servant, but for Christians or for people of faith, it took on another meaning where it was service, but it was willing service, and it was it didn't have any kind of connotation of slavery at all. It was, giving yourself over to the will of another freely, like willingly, and being willing to serve. And so then all that just kind of come together, kind of reading through the book of Ephesians. It's kind of like the Lord kind of nailed an issue for me and said, there's more I want to show you, but are you willing to serve? Are you willing to commit? And it's like, what? I thought I already was committed. But there's an aspect there where there's more to that. So that's kind of like, he gave me some food for thought there. Maybe something needs to be addressed, like in my personal life with the Lord or whatever. So kind of neat how that all just kind of came together. So yeah. So that's kind of what I've been reading, other than like reading up on gardening, reading up on different things, kind of reading the news. I get a Harvard Business Review or Business Review Journal type deal at work. They got me a subscription to that, and there's some really cool articles this month on like leadership in crisis and stuff like that, and like what companies are doing, and so kind of thumbing through some of that. And then, like I said at the beginning of the video, the learning more about herbs. So I got a book that's coming in the mail. It's supposed to be here tomorrow. If it does, maybe we'll go through it tomorrow night if I stream again and see what we can find in there. But just kind of interested in learning more about herbal remedies and stuff, especially since we're in like, poison ivy season and mosquito season and dealing with stuff this summer. Maybe there's going to be some handy things I can learn that where herbs could make a difference this gardening season as far as things that could be facing and stuff. So some cool stuff. So anyway, that's all I got tonight. It's been cool hanging out with everybody and kind of interacting here. It's cool when there's more than 0 people that jump on. Yeah, Hugh, it's been good, man. It's been good hanging out with you, Tom, and I guess Frank's already gone, and so's Marie. But I'll catch you guys on the next one, and we'll see how the weekend goes. You guys have a good night or good morning wherever you're at, depending on what part of the world you're in.